For as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloah, that go softly, and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, therefore behold, the Lord bringeth upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria and all his glory. He shall come up over all his channels, and go over all his banks, and he shall pass through Judah. He shall overflow and go over, he shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land, O Emmanuel.
Well, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing today our study in the book of Proverbs, chapter 24. Was it verse 26, right? And, let's go back a little bit back. We're going to start reading, starting with verse, let's start with verse 21. My son, and I'll try to remember to keep reading into 25 a little bit, because I think we might go in there. My son, fear thou the Lord and the king, and meddle not with them that are given to change. For their calamity shall rise suddenly, and who knoweth the ruin of them both? These things also belong to the wise. It is not good to have respect of persons in judgment. He that saith unto the wicked, Thou art righteous, him shall the people curse, nations shall abhor him. But to them that rebuke him shall be delight, and a good blessing shall come upon them. Every man shall kiss the lips that give a right answer. Prepare thy work without, and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house. Be not a witness against thy neighbor without cause, and deceive not with thy lips. Say not, I will do so to him as he hath done to me. I will render to the man according to his work. I went by the field of the slothful, and by the vineyard of the man void of understanding. And lo, it was all grown over with thorns, and nettles had covered the face thereof, and the stone wall thereof was broken down. Then I saw and considered it well. I looked upon it, and received instruction. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to sleep. So shall thy poverty come as one that travelleth, and thy want as an armed man. Okay, I'm going to read a little into this just for the interest of, I don't know if we'll actually get into this, but let's just read. These are also Proverbs of Solomon, which the men of Hezekiah, king of Judah, copied out. It is the glory of God to conceal a thing, but the honor of kings is to search out a matter. The heaven for height, and the earth for depth, and the heart of kings is unsearchable. Take away the dross from the silver, and there shall come forth a vessel for the finer. Take away the wicked from before the king, and his throne shall be established in righteousness. Put not forth thyself in the presence of the king, and stand not in the place of great men. For better it is that it be said unto thee, Come up hither, than that thou shouldest be put lower in the presence of the prince whom thine eyes have seen. Go not forth hastily to strive, lest thou know not what to do in the end thereof, when thy neighbor hath put thee to shame. Debate thy cause with thy neighbor himself, and discover not a secret to another, lest he that heareth it put thee to shame, and thine infamy turn not away. A word fitly spoken is like apples of gold in pictures of silver. As an earring of gold and an ornament of fine gold, so is a wise reprover upon an obedient ear. Let's hold there. You feel the shifting gears there. Again, it's quite clear that not only that, there's a major time shift in when these are copied out. We're going to look at that. But anyways, there we got a taste of chapter 25. So we get enough scripture to start our study with. Even if we don't use it all up, it's always good to have more than enough, right? Just like the loaves and the fishes, there's always more than we can eat, right? Hey, we all got leaven we got to get rid of. That's one of my primary things, I think, is I've always tried to exercise myself of the things that were not of God that crept into my thinking. And I don't claim to be pure. I've been claimed to be on a process of purification. The thing is, you got to know that's what you're about. You got to know what you're doing. What am I up to? And I was thinking about that. I think actually there's a real deep thing here. I remember it's almost, we know that at chapter 25, there's a break in the chapter here. And we have here, I brought this along today again. And this time I remembered to unmute my mic. So you should be able to hear me just fine. But you can see we're going into chapter 25 here after at unit B, the second italicized B. And it's a different, these are Proverbs by Solomon for all, copied by the men of Hezekiah. Whereas previously these were the ones that were for Solomon from 19 to 24. For a prince and a king, there's a very downward-looking perspective. And as Christians, that's important to us also because we have that regal perspective, or we ought to take it on. As we take on Christ, it's a high calling. There's a humility to it, and then we humble ourselves, but it is he that is greatest he that wants to be greatest among you must be least and must be servant of all. Just as Christ himself came to serve and not to be, and not to be served. And so, the ultimate picture of a true king is a servant. And I see some of that when it talks about the king's heart being unsearchable in a sense, because I feel that also sometimes. It's like, sometimes I do things and my purpose is not to be understood, but to have the result I want. It's like being understood by others is the least concern. I might be doubled up on my mic there. Okay. Let me see. Okay. So our first verse here is every man shall kiss the lips of him that giveth the right answer. We were talking about the way that, that the wicked influence corrupts things, and that, when the ruler, he that says to the wicked, thou art righteous, someone has the power to actually call evil good and good evil, much as we've embarked on in our society in many ways, right? They call evil good and good evil. Or they get confused about those categories to some degree. It's like, and in many ways, it's interesting to me that they'll look at the evils done in the name of good. In the name of Christianity, they'll look at the evils done. For example, one of the things I hear about is they talk about, children being forcibly educated by Christians into Christian schools and Christianity. Much as my children are raised up in my Christian society of the fact that I'm a believer and all that, and there's really nothing to be done about that. If you think there is, then I have a major dispute with you. As far as my children are under my control, and I'll tell you what, under my control, I do a lot more. They have a lot more liberty than they would under the control of many other parents, because good discipline does. You know what discipline produces? Liberty. Liberty is the product. When you have well-disciplined children and people, one of the byproducts is you can trust them. I trust my kids, so I can, like, my wife and I can leave them at home alone. I don't have to be like, well, because but there's a trust developed in the whole, at least. And also individuals, when you have good discipline. That's the whole point. I can count on them to do what they're supposed to do because they know what they're supposed to do and they know that they need to do what they're supposed to do. And that's a byproduct of that. But it's like I said, it doesn't come from over punishing or you got to be very careful and punish the right things. You know, don't crush their spirits. And be careful. You know, you got to do as, how would you, a lot of times people like go on this experiment where they do this sort of, I don't know. I wonder what they're thinking. And again, we have to, the thing is, I know what they're thinking, and I don't want to look down on them. The problem is they're not. You have to seek the Lord, but you also have to seek it with wisdom, and I don't know, and humility, kindness, gentleness, all the things the Holy Ghost teaches. I don't know. Without that, we're very likely to get things wrong. Okay, so but whoever says that what you do right, kiss the lips. Again, that's a metaphor for like when someone. Like how beautiful are the feet of him that preach the gospel, right? And then Jesus, when he came preaching the gospel, people would literally kiss his feet. You know what I mean? And because it can provoke that kind of response. You don't think so until like you really have need. It's like when people are truly in need and the thing comes what they need to hear or whatever they need to receive. If it's actual physical needs of food or whatever, when people help and give them what they need or do justice or whatever, people are thankful. When the right answer goes forth, the mouth that speaks the truth, the people, everyone will kiss it. So like every knee shall bow, every tongue shall confess that Jesus Christ is the Lord, is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. I was going to go that they'll confess that Jesus Christ, it's like there's a lot to confess there, but is Lord, and that covers a lot. Again, there's a lot of these things we confess which are very simple on the surface. Romans 10:9 level, hey, and I never deny it. No one's ever heard me say that that it takes much more than believing that he rose from the dead and confessing with your lips that the Lord Jesus, the lordship of Jesus, you confess that with your lips and you believe in your heart that God raised him from the dead, you are going to be saved. I have no doubt about that. But the whole part about the believe in your heart, it's like, has flesh and blood revealed that to you? Is that just something you're speaking with your lips? Because sometimes it's not both. Sometimes people confess one, but the other is a lie. And we can even lie to ourselves because our heart is quite deceitful. I mean, I always believed, but I didn't realize how much more I could believe or how much doubt I truly had, even though I didn't want to doubt. But if you speak the truth, the mouth that speaks truth is the mouth that's speaking the word of God. That is the gospel of Jesus Christ ultimately. And therefore, when we preach the gospel of Jesus Christ, they will bow. They will kiss his feet. And by extension, they will worship before our feet because we will be seated with him in the throne of righteousness. Because we spoke aright. We gave the upright answer, the truth. It is the truth, but there is because I'm not sure, right here might be in the sense of upright righteousness, not necessarily in the sense of, well, there is a correctitude to that. Let's look it up. Let's look at it a little, since it's such a short verse. But it is saying a lot, isn't it? And of course, down to the, when people when people give the right answer in a circumstances, when you have the right answer to something, people tend to then have respect to your, the things you say. You know what I mean? And it means they'll be more likely to listen to you again when you give the right answer. The kissing of the lips is the meaning they become affectionate for those lips. You know what I mean? In that sense, like with the way passion of a man and a woman, you kissing the lips because there's something about her lips that makes me passionate. And what is it about the lips of the righteous that they give the right answer? It makes people passionate, and they want to return to those lips and have those lips speak to them again. It's not a sexual thing. It's a spiritual thing. but it uses a somewhat sensual, let's say, the sensuality of the kissing of the lips to explain also the absolute pleasure that there is in having the right answer to things. Because having the right answer is the key to so many questions. Like when you ask a question, implicit is you want the right answer, right? And the one that gives the right answer, well, if you keep giving the right answer, the one that speaks the truth, as opposed to him that says to the wicked, you are righteous. No, see, again, the people will curse, but they're going to kiss the lips. That's the hyperbolic opposite extension of that, proverbially, but it does go down to much smaller gradations of the ideas of ways in which that is lived out. It doesn't always, like I said, it's like when you hear someone speaking truth, you listen again. Those lips are lips that are like, I will go to those lips again. And especially when you go to the ultimate truth of Jesus Christ, your lips become truly sanctified because the ultimate truth is on them, which is he that laid his life down for us. He is the ultimate truth. And again, it's not just correct. Like a lot of times people get confused about truth and they think it's like about scientific truth. Yeah, there's a truth about mechanical ways the world works, but that doesn't really explain anything. It's so. There was a quote from this guy Ingersoll I saw in a video, and it was I remember he was talking about how that religious people tell us God will judge us, reward us for the good things we do. So, but we know that we intellectuals. He literally said something so just absolutely cringy, as far as from my perspective. And this is supposed to be profound from this atheistic perspective, and I found it ridiculous and absurd. And so he said, well, we know that goodness has its own natural reward. It's like the idea of that nature itself rewards good things is indistinguishable from there being some sort of divine, built-in, irresistible, immutable force that makes good things work for good. It's almost like, what's the difference? There wasn't. I mean, it's like he's talking about the same thing as if they're different. There is only a difference of degree. Only a difference of degree. All right, let's look at the Hebrew on this real quick. I don't mind spending a bit of time finishing out this chapter because I think there's something quite profound here. Not just this verse. Verse 22. Well, I'm sorry, I don't have you with me here. Browse internet. That's what it's called on my thing. That's what I called it. Okay. Thou unrighteous people curse. Every man shall kiss his lips that giveth a right answer. What is right? That's interesting. That's straight, which is good and interesting, of course. And I'll tell you why. Straight, right, or straightness. Not upright, but straight. And honestly, straightforward, upright. It can mean upright. Okay, also means upright. It says here, at least in the NASB translation, it's translated upright way or uprightness. But it really means straight in that sense of, not, I guess, as opposed to crooked, froward, right? From the same of nechash, which I assume was actually that. Is it? No, it isn't. No, it's nakol. I'm sorry, nakol ach. It's at the end. So, something like that. From the same of nekach. Straightforward, that is figuratively equitable, correct, or abstractly integrity. But when you give, but also in the sense, like I like the idea of the sense of a straight answer, because also in the sense that a straightforward answer, as opposed to an answer that's kind of meandering and deviating. At least I know that also appeals to people, and I wonder if that is not also implicit in this. I don't know. But because, like, people often, like the former President Trump, when people often will comment how he lies, and he is a bit of he exaggerates, speaks in hyperboles and fibs all the time. I say fibs, but it's like, yeah, I know he's not always telling something that's absolutely the truth. But there's also a certain sort of straightforwardness to it, in that, I don't know, there's, that in a way I understand why people found refreshing. Because I did too, because there's a sort of, like, I didn't feel like I was there was like some double talk to it. Like, no, he's as greasy as he always seems to be. And, because all human beings are corrupt in one way or another, and we are never, can we truly say what is right? Can truly, can pure things come out of the same fountain? Can bitter and sweet water flow? Ultimately, no. But the true fount of the water is the Holy Ghost. That's why, though, no, maybe at the same place, not with nature, but with God, all things are possible, and we're not tied to one place. But he finds us wherever we are. Which is blessed, because the earth is a big place. So anyways, I'm going to give the straightforward answer, the right answer, the straight, the true, the narrow way. Again, we always talked about that sin as being deviating from being on target. And this is right in the sense of on target. Like, yes, unsinful. And also, I do think, in the sense that a meandering, deviating course, though there is something to, like some things are complicated. But when someone can take the complex and make it simple for people, or make it easy to understand, because I think at the heart of a lot of complexity is not so much the truth itself, but how it becomes complicated for us to understand because our experiences contradict perhaps the truth. Or they make it difficult for us to understand the truth, I suppose. I don't know. I don't have a at-hand example of that, so let's move on. I like this next verse. I think this is a very good thing. It makes me think of things I've heard from people talk, about life in general. Prepare thy work without, and make it fit for thyself in the field, and afterwards build thine house. It's a sense of, I like it when it says make it fit for thyself in the field. Immediately comes to mind the idea of field testing. You test things in the field. You prepare your work, make it fit in the field, and afterwards you build. There's a process that you go through. I'm not, the idea of using this as some sort of nitty-gritty way of trying to guide everything, I'm always like, we don't need to go that far. And we can look at the, prepare your work. I'm looking at the verbs mostly. It's like prepare, make fit, and then build. You know what I mean? Without and in the field, and then your house. Which is interesting because it's kind of like, it's a little bit of a different perspective on like the way Jordan Peterson would say. It was like, first start with your room, make your bed and then get your room cleaned up and then go out in the world and try to do stuff. But also, there's a thing like when you're talking about building your house, it's one thing to talk about getting off your rear end as a baby and you're gonna, kid, you gotta learn to make, I don't know, if you don't know how to take care of the basics of life, you don't know how to wipe your rear end and make your bed and screw in a light bulb, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, get up off your rear end, make your bed, if that's, whatever. I don't make my bed. I got too much to do. I never make my bed. You know what I mean? Like, clean your room. My room isn't, I don't spend any time in my room. It doesn't get dirty. It gets dusty. We clean it out once in a while. As far as like, I clean up my desk all the time. It's kind of crazy, but it's like there's constantly stuff going on. It's a process of churning. But what I'm saying is, sure, I get it. You got, when you're doing nothing, you got to start somewhere small. All right, but when you're thinking about starting to build a house, certainly, you don't just start building a house. You're cleaning up your room because you're in your mommy and daddy's house and you're cleaning up your room. I get it. And it's like nothing wrong with living with your parents as far as I'm concerned. I like helping my kids launch. You know what I mean? But it's like notion of like starting to take responsibility. It's like, why, like if you're a young adult and you need someone who isn't your father to tell you to clean up your room, you obviously don't have a father in your life, because, I don't need to tell my kids, they keep their own room clean. I don't tell, of course they make their beds, whatever. I don't know. They're not, whatever. They're all gainfully employed. We don't have these problems. Probably because I made them wrestle when they were young. They learn to take responsibility. It's like I don't have to get on their rear ends. It's none of that. I'm always very pleased with my kids, what I would call their industriousness. Because they work on their own projects, they have interests. I tell them, don't be if you're bored, it's because you're boring. Have something interesting and you're interested in, and then work on it and do it and be it, and find something. Don't if you're constantly looking to be entertained and amused by outside like television and other things, I mean, I listen to interesting things all the time in like YouTube. Like a thing like this, I could imagine if I wasn't doing this, this is what I'd be listening to while I'm insulating a building outside or working on some siding or something. I'd have it in my earbuds while I'm working or whatever, or working on my car. I'd listen to something like this or other things I listen on YouTube. Absolutely. But as far as I remember, like when I used to watch television as a kid, it was like entertainment all the time, cartoons, and that's all right for a bit, but you got to have interesting things to do with yourself. And the world is filled with amazing things to do, so you shouldn't be bored. Anyway, you shouldn't be lounging around your room with nothing. Get out there in the world. Once one of the points that Jordan Peterson had about making your bed and getting done with your room was to then go out into the world. Prepare go out and get some experience. Understand your work, what you're going to do before you build your house. Because building your house is a big next step. Once you have control of your own life and you get married, you're starting to build a house. If you have children and stuff, you're building a house. Now, as far as like field testing for family and all that stuff, I don't know if that's necessary. I think what he's also saying is like it says, the Apostle Paul, no other foundation can be laid than that is laid, which is Christ Jesus. When I build my house, I build on the foundation of Christ. But let every man take heed how he builds thereon. I won't say I got married. I definitely, before I got married, I'd read through the Bible. I'd read books on, a lot of books actually, on all kinds of biblical topics. And even, when I got married, someone gave me a book on parenting. A couple of them I read at least part of them, or maybe all of them. I don't know. Back then, I used to read a lot of books. I wouldn't say, and I didn't agree with everything I read, but I listened to the counsel, and what I agree with, I didn't. I read the scriptures. I, listened to that. I thought about what I'd experienced growing up. I'd gathered all that information and mindfully set about being a parent. In which like I was telling my daughter-in-law earlier today, I made most of my mistakes with her husband, my first son. Not just him, but also him, and I would say his first couple brothers. The first four were the most heavily mistakes made when they were young. And I suppose daughter is a creature all to itself. I only had one, so all mistakes that were girl specific got made with her, and I never got a chance to see if I could fix it. But that's the way it goes. You don't always get a lot of chances at things. That's why, prepare yourself. Think about it. Prepare yourself. Make fit. Let's look at those verbs. I want to know what those verbs are. Those sound like verbs that are important. Because like I said, the verbs there are the real key to understanding this. As far as I'm not going to get into specifics about, because like I said, how prepared can anyone be to have kids and a family? I don't want you to be so, like I said, I always encourage people to take the plunge, and get married, especially when I see people that are already living together and stuff. It's like, get married. You're Christians, get married. You're living together. I mean, especially if it's one thing if you're just living in the same house or something like that. I mean, people are sleeping together, or have been for years, and it's like, and you're a believer. It's like, so why not be married? Because a lot of people are marriage adverse because they don't get married. You go, because you don't have kids. No. And I'm very much not like that. But I wouldn't say do it just like, oh, it'll be easy. It's like, well, no, you're taking on a great burden in life. And it's good to take on a great burden. It makes you stronger. People aren't impressed with me because I didn't have a family. You know what I mean? Because we studiously controlled and I have one child. It's like, that's, if I stood here as a person with one son instead of 7 and a daughter, would I be as, whatever? I certainly be who I am. I mean, not that someone can't be wise like that, but I have a particular experience from all that. Certainly. I mean, I can speak and people will grant that at least I have something to say about it. Other people talk about kids and stuff. You had 1 or 2 and you went to college, and you can learn a lot from books. But until you apply that knowledge, I'm not as impressed. It's one of the things I didn't like about the book. I found the Dobson book. I think I did read Dare to Discipline, which I believed in. But what was interesting, I didn't follow all the recommendation because I believed in spanking with the bare hand because I thought it was easiest to control. They had some sort of they don't want you to use your hand, whatever. It's like differences of opinion. And another one I read, but the guy who wrote it was like a young father with small children. And I thought that's kind of weird. Becoming a father, he's wrote it while he's got a 5-year-old. It's like, I don't know, dude. That's not the full experience. I want to see how you did with your teenagers. I'm always because a lot of times, that's the notorious zone. That's where you get your parenthood tested. I don't claim to be perfect. I mean, my kids will say, no. Certainly not. I don't even claim to have done great. But I'm glad they don't hate me. I don't want to sit here and start bragging. I would rather talk about how I screwed up. That's why I said I don't want to. I glory in my infirmities. Let's shine a spotlight on where I did wrong. Because that'll help you better than me talking about anything I got right. Okay. Prepare thy work. Oh, here we go. I'm here, but you're not. There we go. Prepare thy work without. Prepare is that one. I'm going to just bring it up. These glasses. My new glasses got broken. They're in pieces here. I'm going to give them a good old JB Weld treatment pretty soon. I got them. They're taped right now. Just need 6 hours to harden. So I can't read anymore again. Anywho. And make it fit. I got that. And then build. No, that means we don't need to look at that. That's to be firm, to make firm. I mean, that's quite, let's be sure about what we're doing. Let's make it firm. To confirm. It's been translated a lot of ways in the New American Standard Bible. That's what that means right here. That's what that is. The Brown Driver Briggs, there are a lot of different contexts in which this word is going to be used. I'm not going to try to find the specific one for this one. Strong's Exhaustive Concordance. It is a primitive root. Properly to be erect, that is to stand perpendicular. Hence, to set. I was expecting the word right to mean. There's a word upright that means that, like also to stand erect. I think it comes. What is the word? It's not related to that, is it? Oh my goodness, it's way up there. Coon. No. Hence, causatively to set up in a great variety of applications. Yeah, to set it up. Oh yes, to set, like to stand something up. But in the sense of as almost like a trial. Set it up, and a thought to be ready. Yeah, to make ready, to ready. Get set up, get ready. When you're building a house, you're doing something significant. Consult the Bible a bit. Maybe read a book by Dobson. I don't agree with that guy 100% on a lot of things, whatever, but he's definitely got, there's a lot of good advice. And similarly, I think, it's been a long time since I read it, so don't take that as a recommendation, okay? I mean, it was literally before I had my first son. All right. To be ready. Okay, a thought. All right, and this one, okay. So I also started getting lost in thought about parenting there and about things I might say, and I was like, let's just go back to the verse. But anyways, so I likened it to family, but it goes to all things. Whatever you do, take counsel, not only, with wisdom, with yourself, with others who are wise. In the multitude of counsel, there is safety. I love that verse. And it doesn't mean just that because you have a multitude of counselors. It doesn't say a multitude of counselors. It's in the multitude of counsel. Meaning, I want to hear all the ways I can do this and all the ways it could go wrong. I want to hear every counter argument I could possibly come up with. That's why in some ways, whatever, that's one of the, if I was going to say, sometimes people will say of me that, I question things too much. And I agree. It's like, I have that I have a lot of multitude of counsel in one mind, which sometimes drives me crazy. It's like I said, to me, at times it's an infirmity that paralyzes me. But also, I like when I talk to others about all my thoughts that I have in a situation, or I just express it all out. I bring out all the counsel, like when I have a verse and I think there's many different ways to interpret it, or I'm in a situation and I see many paths forward. Like I said, I am the ultimate authority in my family, but I will take all that counsel I have in my head, which to me it can be daunting, and I will talk to my wife or sometimes to my sons, and I'll ask them what they think about it, or my brother, my father. I will take that counsels and ask them their opinion also, because I will listen not only to my own voice, but to the voices of others. I take the advice. What king goes without counsel? And who could be a better counsel? If you have good counsel in your wife, you should heed it. Any man whose wife could actually, like if you're a woman and you could nearly challenge your husband for rule of your house, that should be your husband's delight. And it should be your delight too, because you can give him good counsel. You just have to do it in that spirit. You know what I mean? Because sometimes it can be a close thing. There's a lot of, the bell curve of intelligence between men and women is a very different. Women is very tall and narrow, and men is very broad and like that, As far as there are more women of average intelligence than there are men, but women are of about equal average intelligence, which is interesting. But it means at the tail end, there's some outliers. Just like with all things, and a lot of these in life, there are things everyone does not get the same. It's like the parable of the worker's wages. We do get the same. We all get death in the end, right? But that doesn't mean we all go through the same toil. Some people work all day in the sun. Some people only work a few hours, and some people work 1 hour, and then we all get the same bargain. And that's how it is. That's how it really is. Except cosmically, through the justice of the Lord, we have salvation from death. I mean, that is how the earth is set up. That is how it looks. And that is how men deceive themselves into thinking it doesn't matter. It is a true thing. We all get the same thing in the end, at least from the earthly perspective. But God is not, there will be justice. You think there is no justice? No, there will be justice. Whatever that looks like. Like I said, justice doesn't mean I'm going to be living forever. That's not justice. That's mercy. I'm glad there's mercy also. Mercy rejoices against wrath. Wrath against, was it against wrath? I forget if it's against wrath. It's not against justice, because that would be wrong. Anyways, it'll probably occur to me later. So, anyways, the idea is, whatever you do, think about it. Like Jesus said, count the cost. Don't be like the guy who started to build a tower and he didn't count the cost and he couldn't finish it. That doesn't mean, don't try. Like in a family situation, it's like, well, I can't do it. No, you may. There are other costs as well. There are trade-offs. The main thing is you don't want to be caught off guard paying costs you didn't anticipate. That's happened to me millions of times. That may be an exaggeration. Thousands would not, hundreds. Probably hundreds. Which is not an exaggeration. Being caught off guard, in small situations. I mean, where I I don't know how many times I just felt like there was some wasted money or something like that. And I always feel guilty because I'm always trying to, because I feel it's my obligation. I want to redeem the time. Every moment is precious. I can't live that way. I want to live that way. And I live some moments that way. It's hard to live every moment that way because it's hard to be consistently conscious of that fact, of how precious life is. Because in the midst of it, we have so much abundance of it. While you're in the midst of life, this moment is like forever. It just keeps going on. And you see yourself getting older, sure, but the moment that now is, now is. And it's glorious to be awake in this moment. I think so. Even though sometimes I think it's hard and all that, it's I also I'm I don't know, Paul, even if it isn't the end times, you live in pretty interesting times. Some people think that's not good. I get it. Woe to you that desire the day of the Lord. It's darkness and not light. What is the day of the Lord to you? Again, I don't desire it because it's not for me. I desire the day of Christ. When I talk about the day, there's different meanings to the day of the Lord. There's different perspectives on that concept. And the day of the Lord has come on different occasions as different things. But there is an ultimate day of the Lord, of course, just as there is an ultimate Antichrist, even though there be many Antichrists. It says there is a King of Kings and Lord of Lords, man. There are other kings, there are other lords. Just like there is a bright and morning star, the one and only, and there's he who the prophet even refers to, Lucifer, bright star, son of the dawn. Whom art thou like in thy greatness? Behold, the Assyrian was a cedar in Lebanon, with fair branches. Okay. Be not witness against thy neighbor without cause. Without a righteous cause. Not the cause of revenge, which is with this very, I'm going to just get back at him. That definitely not. Like I said, don't you see I see so much of Christ's teaching right out of Proverbs. I say, is it so much different? It's just that the people don't believe, just like today. Christians don't believe in Christianity, and Jews didn't really believe in Judaism. That was his main critique of him. Look at this, what the law says, but you say this. The law says this, but you say that. You say, it says this is what you got to do. You got to pay attention to judgment, mercy, and faith. But you pay attention to the tithe of the mint and the anise and the cumin, and you left off the weightier matters. Concerned with personal vendettas. I'm going to do to him what he did to me. No. Do justice. Show him what justice looks like so he could feel ashamed for what he did. And and you know what? And don't rejoice even in his shame, lest God turn away from him and start worrying about you. Let him feel the full brunt of God's, wrath of the shame. I feel maybe a little whisper of God's fear in his heart. I don't want to interfere with that at all. I'll pity him, even for his shame, because in his pride, it must hurt. That's the right attitude. I'm not saying I got that mastered, but I know what it is. That's half the battle, right? Knowing is half the battle, kids. You just got to know what's right. That's a good start. Then let your conscience be your guide. That was out of key. And always let your conscience be your guide. Though I do not watch, don't purchase Disney products, right? That's a perfectly legitimate anti-advertisement by me. Don't give them a dime. Ungodly. But I did enjoy it as a kid. When it was not so much. Though he was always a bit of a pagan, wasn't he? He certainly wasn't Christian. Though, the wholesomeness was definitely secular. He was a modern secular guy, And also, whatever. A lot of the things we condemn today, he was, You know, I generally don't like to be, I don't mind looking back on people and disliking them historically for my own reasons, meaning, like I said, for Christian principles and stuff like that. But for things that like were acceptable back then, but not now, I generally don't focus on that. Things like racism and stuff. Like, I know he was racist, but it's like, yeah, everybody was, I guess, back then. Not everybody, but a lot more people believed in it. You know, so I don't believe in it. I understand it, though. You know, people are naturally that's why it says, you know, don't oppress the stranger that dwells among you in the law. You know, that tribalness is supposed to be tempered by the law. The law is supposed to, you know, because again, the tribes had to coexist with other people. Anyways, I don't want to focus on that. But anyways, I see that, you know, you look at this. Revenge not yourself. Vengeance is mine. It's not up to you to render to men according to their works. This is what the essence of judge not to be not the judge. I mean, you know, like, don't sit there as the judge. You know what? I mean, because he that is a false witness. Why are you false witnessing? Well, because you know what? Like Trump, when they tell lies about the guy, like I said, I don't want to flatter him. I didn't initially like the person. I have a certain fondness for the person. I even had a song recently come out. I had a song come out yesterday. My Words Are Violence. But that has to be, you can search for that under my name. It came out under Paul Strangini. If you look up that topic on YouTube, you can the topic Paul Strangini, literally, you can find My Words Are Violence. That came out on the 14th. Anyways. But when you're a witness against your neighbor, you're setting yourself up as the judge. It's like saying he deserved, like when Sam Harris was like, I don't care if Joe Biden has kids, and you know, we have to defeat Trump no matter what. So we have to lie about the Hunter Biden dossier. It's okay if Google uses the algorithm to flip undecided voters in a way they think that they should go, as opposed to letting them just naturally flip. They realize they could tweak it. And it's a certain Dr. Robert Epstein. Epstein. I got it wrong. Epstein. Very different. E.I. Epstein is doing work tracking Google's, the way they, basically push people who are undecided in a particular direction, and did during the election. Apparently, that's the claim he claims. I don't know whether it's true or not. I know whether or not I believe it. But anyways, they will lie against him because he's a unique threat. He's a unique threat, so we can lie, cheat, and steal. It doesn't matter because we're doing the right, because if you're trying to stop Hitler from coming to power, then all bets are off. If you got to prevent Hitler from coming to power, well, then you can do anything you want, even break the law, according to these people. Even, ignore the Constitution. We can ignore the Constitution to save the Constitution. We can ignore and that's basically the mentality. We can save democracy. I don't want to save democracy. I want to save the constitutional republic and the democracy that supports it. Sure, we're democratically elected constitutional republic. What's the danger to that? What are we going to, you know what the danger to democracy is? Every time they say democracy is at stake, you know what those people are doing? They're signaling that if you elect the wrong person, they're going to end democracy. They're going to void that election. You can count on it. They're going to void that election, and there'll be no more elections. That's what they're signaling. They don't want to put up with that again. It will be the end of democracy. That's a warning to you. That's how I think. That's how I hear that. That's how it enters into my ears. Democracy is at stake. If you elect him, well, then we're going to have to end democracy. I think that's what they mean. I think that's the subtle, or I don't even think they mean that I don't mean they consciously mean it. I mean, this is a, what do you call it? Well, they're just projecting what their own actual subconscious intent is. Like, we can't allow this to happen. We must break the law. We must not allow democracy to happen. We must instead manipulate democracy in order to get the results that we know are right. And that's the thing. It's like, when you manipulate the truth in order to get what you put yourself in the place of God as all-knowing. as all see. You know the truth. You know the right way. And therefore you may break the laws of right and wrong in order to get the right result. You can do as God does and make all things work together for good. Even evil can work together for good for you because you are like the divine. That's what people understand. When Israel invokes Amalek, they understand God invoked that. You do that on your own. There's a lot of other scriptures. You don't get to do that because you are not God. That's what people understand. There's they say many other. There are not a whole lot of other. Yes, at that time, there are many battles like that of absolute annihilation. No doubt. Such is the way of the world and life. Absolute annihilation, like I said, is what we all get. We all get our wages at the end, and it's all the same. Annihilation. What else do you expect out of life? What else do you got coming? Nothing. Everything that you got coming. That's why I said, I'm not saved by wages. I'm saved by grace. I'm saved by mercy. I'm saved by the blood of Christ. Not by my works wages. Not by the things I've done in my life. The things I've done in my life, all they will do is condemn me. Even since my cradle, I was condemned. That's why God can say, just wipe them out. But men cannot say such things. Men who say such things are deluded, insane men who have this, they think they're God. I mean, you can't just invoke the Bible out of context and say, oh, that just because Amalek is, we can do it again. There's a lot of other scriptures. You ripped up the women with child of Gilead. Listen to Amos. There's a lot of other places where it says, oh, no, Israel. No. Like, remember what about, what was it? What was the name of the town? There was a town, I forgot the name of it. The men of, but they said, we're a little town and we're not nearby. We're kind of far off. They kind of lied. Make an agreement with us. We heard you're great people. And they were actually right in the midst of them. But God said, oh no, now you made an agreement. You cannot do that. But they're going to be a problem for you, but you cannot betray that agreement. When you make peace with people, you can't. And even if they do, there were other people that attacked them. The children of Edom, the children of Moab, the Midianites, which are related to the Ishmaelites. And the Ishmaelites also were part of that oppression at times in the book of Judges. It's not just all of Israel's enemies get become korban, things devoted to destruction, a very technical thing that's only invoked a few times only at one period in history were those battle tactics condoned by God. And to take that on yourself at some other period, to apply it to yourself without applying the same rigorous standards of holiness, of wandering in the wilderness for 40 years where their carcasses fell because of their unbelief, and that they were worthy to be to do such a deed, to be allowed to do such a deed. And remember, you can take no pleasure in these things. And there was a lot of things that came of it. People tried stealing for themselves. That was, what was it, Achan? He troubled Israel because he took of the accursed thing, the things that were devoted to destruction. He tried to keep for himself. Same thing happened with Saul. When he tried to keep something for himself that was supposed to be destroyed. Some things are not, there are things, like, I always felt the same way when I was destroying pornography. I was like, tempted to keep a little back. Oh, what about just this little bit here? No, you got to destroy it. It's all devoted to destruction. Hold nothing back. Keep nothing under your tent in the corner. It'll be a curse to you. Lest it become a curse to you. God deliver us from all the curses. And that's, thank God, that under Christ there is no curse. But having escaped the curse, be wise. Give heed. And we can learn. Let's not fall after the same example of unbelief. That's the critical thing, is our faith. Faith in the Lord is the critical thing that will, the guide that will lead us to truth. When we have faith in Him, and also in faith seek Him. If you believe in Him, you should know you need more of Him. And you should know you need more counsel, more wisdom, more knowledge. Deceive not with your lips. It better be the truth. If you're witnessing against your neighbor, it better be good. My neighbor's done some. He killed his wife, and I saw it. Obviously, yeah, obviously. But don't come out against your neighbor like, this man spoke things against the government. I saw this, or I saw him burning some trash in his bag, or violating his grass is too long. What if it's like he's poor and his lawnmower's broken down? Give him a break. Or lying because sometimes people get in trouble for real reasons, but they become so despised in it that people start lying against them. And then that feeds into their grievances. I had a kid once in sports who started, he always had a temper problem. And he started getting a reputation. And so the calls would go against him more and more, and he was angry on the mat and getting calls against him and stuff. And he was saying, everybody's against me. And the other coaches were like, no, you're wrong. It's not true. And I'm like, and I was listening. And then I took him aside. I'm like, you know what? You're right. Everyone's against you. They all see it. The way you act out there, they don't like you because the way you behave. And da-da-da. And I remember he was stunned. I'm like, so what are you going to do about that? They don't like you now. How are you going to win ever? I'm like, what are you going to do? How are you going to get over that? I told him, you go out there, you better start being the best sport, the most sportsman-like guy on that mat. And I would make a big show about it, especially when you get a bad call. Smile and just be not sarcastically, but just take it in good stride, be calm, show that you have the most level head. And instead of getting calls against you by being that guy, they'll maybe feel guilty if there's a questionable call. Let your coach question it. When you go that high-class route, I'm telling you, I get calls going my direction all the time. And, as far as, not anything unfair, but I don't feel like I get unfair treatment. As far as, I think I get... I never feel, I don't know, if you feel like you're getting bad calls and people don't like you, there's probably some truth in it, is what I was saying. Anyways, he totally changed his behavior. It got through to him, and, it was good for him. But the point is, there's a feedback loop that goes on in a situation. You're behaving badly. Your neighbor, he's a person that does things that, maybe make you unhappy. Like he's done something wrong to you, right? And it's tempting to get back at him. And there may come an occasion where you could get back at him. Like you could falsely accuse him. And this time he's not guilty, but you know what? Everyone's going to believe it's him because everyone don't like him and I don't like him. So I'll pervert justice for the sake of my revenge. I will render to the man according. I'll sit in God's place and say, you don't deserve any consideration. Now you die. Like I said, like Amalek, time to die. Your whole society has been judged. We don't get to do that. That is not for men to do. Just because that is in the Bible and God does it, I know that's a horror to men. That is the horror. That is the terror. That is the divine. He holds our souls in the palm of our hand and snuffs them out with his will. That's God. It's when men play God that's the problem. Let God be God. God is God, and it's terrifying. Very idea is terrifying. Knowing the terror of the Lord, we persuade men. And some people are, that's awful. It is awful. Yes, life and death. It's one or the other. It was an awful truth. Don't be the avenger. Don't take joy in the downfall of others. You want to enter into the divine. There's so much divine wisdom in this, really. It's kingly. It's regal. There's a high, that's why I feel so much kindredness or kinship linked to Christ in this, because it's like advice to the prince. And so why are the slothful suddenly evoked here? It's interesting. Well, I will render to every man according to his works. Right? To give every man according as his works shall be. I am Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the first and the last. It is not for us to render to every man according to his works, but it is for every man to work and to be judged according to his works. And if you're a Christian, not so much to be judged according to your works, but to have your works themselves judged on the altar of God, whether they be gold, silver. You actually get to cash your works in, which is like, you understand, that is mercy. He doesn't have to receive anything from us. It's like a game. It's like when my kids bring me a little scribbled drawing. Here you go, Dad, a birthday card. I mean, my kids have drawn some really nice birthday cards. There's a really cool one here my son drew for me. It's like a picture of him in a corner, and I've got the belt. I should turn my camera up to it, but whatever. Maybe I'll here. I mean, I don't want to. I don't want to rip it. It's got a tack in it. If it was tape, I would pull it off and show it to you. No, I like those. But I mean, that's nice. That's skillful, right? I mean, but I guess, I mean, to me it's unthinkable. But I guess a jerk dad could be like, that's not good enough. But God, in his mercy, receives our things as to what they are as far as service to him. Metaphorically, gold, silver, bronze, precious stones, wood, hay, stubble. Some things, if it says if they're burned on the altar, you suffer loss, but your soul is saved. I mean, our soul is saved because of the blood of Christ, but our works do matter as far as he lets us. It's like a Chuck E. Cheese, how many coins you get. As far as I don't know that it actually matters. Like I said, the most precious thing to me is that by working, the fact that God entrusts all those works to me means that he has faith. Whatever. It's like that. That means the more I get to do, that means I'm drawing closer to him because I'm doing things that he wants me to do. And the most precious thing is, like I said, is that relationship you develop with God, because my society with him is the ultimate society. That's the primary relationship of man, is man and God. And when we have that right, everything else will be right. All our other interactions are going to be correct. Or they should be. Then it should be natural to love your neighbor as yourself. It's something that takes practice, and we have to practice to perfect. So the field of the slothful, again, I think of the parable of talents. We have talents. We all have gifts. We all have to work. We have to have works. And so I do think there is a connection here. I used to think this is disjointed. But we're about to just switch. How could these, so the book of Proverbs, remember, Solomon predates Hezekiah by centuries. Several centuries. Remember, David was about 1000 BC. Hezekiah would be like 600. I mean, give or take. I'm not trying to, I know that I was thinking 611 BC is the year the Assyrians came and took the defense cities of Judah, but that's according to Companion Bible. And so the accepted dating of scholars is often different. And Bullinger was like 100 years ago, so I don't know if I should trust him more than modern scholars, but that's where most of my notes came from, and also my sense of time. So that's why I say the calendar stuff, I'm like, don't even bother. Whatever. Okay, so the slothful, instead of rendering every man according to his work, but instead of playing, here's what I would say. Here's the transition. Here's the thought for the wise. Instead of revenge, do not say, be not a witness against you. This is Satan's work. Literally. This is what it means to be Satan. To lie with your lips and bearing witness against your neighbor. As far as much as we could be considered his neighbors. We ought to be, who's your neighbor? Jesus taught. Well, it's the person that hates you. So definitely we're Satan's neighbors. There's a mutual enmity between the devil and certainly me, because it's like that. He wants to destroy my soul, and I don't want my soul destroyed. So, and he deceives with his lip. He's the accuser of our brethren, right? Don't be like Satan. Satan goes out there and he wants you to eat your sins. Sin and eat it and die. You know? He wants you to just sin and die. Go the way of death. You know, cash it in, man. I'll render to you according to your works. See, he deserves to die. That's what Satan's like. And it's not for us to sit in judgment, but to work. You know, every man is given to work, and you're going to be judged on your work. And I'll tell you what, the most extreme example of that, what's the most hyperbole? The slothful. They don't do nothing. All they got is faith, and they buried it somewhere back in the barn. They can't remember where they buried it, you know. I got it somewhere back there. I don't know. Jesus. Yeah. I confess the name of Jesus, right? I got it right next to my insurance policy I bought. Don't set yourself up a judge, but get to work. Not in the, don't let your field be the field of the slothful. Metaphorically, that is in the spirit. What is the field we're plowing? Well, I suppose the field of your mind, the fertile field of your mind, also the fertile field of the world. How, let your light so shine among men, at least so that there would be a reason that they might ask you of the joy that lies in you, of the hope that lies in you, rather, right, as it says, or of the joy, whichever you prefer, hope, joy. And what happened with the field of the man void of understanding? Whose field was overgrown with thorns. According to Jesus in the parable of the sower, that is the cares of this life, the deceitfulness of riches. I don't do it. I'll never be rich. What's the point of working 9-to-5 job just to survive? I'll never be rich. I'll never have what they have. I'll never have those riches. I'll sit around watching rich people on TV. Watch them do rich things and envy them. Envy their wicked lifestyle. Envy their fornicative, drug-fueled parties. Oh. And the field that they should have been tilling and growing up fruitfulness unto the Lord. Producing more, of the Spirit, the righteous fruit of God, of the knowledge that He imparts into our lives, that we can, conduct ourselves in accordance with the ways of Christ, that we might grow up into Him, into the image of He that we are to grow up into His image and to be created after the same. Right? Our field, the fertile field of our mind, should be a perpetual, turned up, black, rich, loamy soil, ready to receive the seeds of God's understanding. The new and more fruitful crops of various kinds may come forth. It should be tilled, not grown over with thorns, not nettles covering the face thereof. And the walls got to be fixed. You got to have the proper boundaries. The ancient boundaries should be maintained, and there's room for growth. It's like maybe we expand the garden over here because for some just cause. We got a wild area that wasn't taken in ancient times, but we can tame this wild wilderness. We're not stealing anybody's thing or whatever, whatever. I'm just trying to say there's other metaphors. Like I said, I'm alluding to the idea of the new wineskin. You got to rotate your crops, I would say. That's also, don't always plant the same thing in the same place. Whatever. There's different things. Those are all metaphorical, and they're built into nature. Ingersoll. I think he's probably dead. Robert F. Ingersoll, I think it was. They're built into nature, yes, because nature's God has built them into it, and they are fixed there also, and they are an example. And if you read the scriptures and absorbed them the way I have, you already know that the scripture already did. Like what you're talking about is you are an absurd child talking about the subject of the wise and of true men who've gone into this long before you. You guys think you're intellectual and enlightened. You are fools grasping in the dark. You haven't even taken in ancient wisdom. Ancient wisdom. It's a goat herder's guide. It's the king's guide. The goat herder's guide, you fools. They call it the goat herder's guide to the universe. You know what? You can do with your goat herder's guide to the universe, you can place it exactly where the goat herders of the universe reside. I don't even know what that means. It was the only way I could get through that sentence without saying something profane. Which is, I think, out in the desert. You know? You know, like, put it in the wilderness and then let the goats eat it, because that's what it's worth. All right? Maybe it's time to bring the goats in and have them eat up all those thorns, huh? I considered it well. What is the instruction? Like I said, it's just, this doesn't make sense, Paul. Like, this was me the other day. I don't get it. Why does it shift gears here? Well, you know what the thing is? What if I just said, oh, well, I didn't notice it shifting gears there because the Word of God's perfect? It's like I'm neglecting to get the perfect understanding. I'm the one who needs to understand. You know? It's not a question of like it's got to be perfect in the way I expect it to be perfect. It's got to be perfect in its own way. No, it is perfect in its own way. It's like that's not... I need to learn. But it's like, you know, it's interesting. You think, I'm going to sit as judge. What you are is a sluggard. People sit around like, I sit around judging things. This movie sucks. This sucks. That sucks. Oh, that's good. I like that. It's okay. You know? In that sense, too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, sit around judging the world all the time. And then Jordan Peterson, I get the point. Like, hey, get out and, make your bed. Instead of ordering the universe, you know, that's the thing is they judge God, they judge the universe, but they can't make their own beds. Oh, I get that. I get that. And before you go judging the universe, build your house, too. Like I said, I sired a daughter and 7 sons. What'd you do with your life? You know, I'm not mocking anybody, but it's like, before you tell me I don't know what I'm doing, before you start telling me, this is how the universe ought to run, you're going to tell God? It's like you don't even know how to be a father. How do you know how to be a God? You're not the one who renders according to his works. I love this verse. Say not, I will render to the man according to his work. That is the essence of judge not, that you be not judged. Because it sort of like goes down that, it's also a mentality of the judgmentalism. Of being, that's one of the things, like, I do talk about the wicked. I don't want to get consumed with the wicked, though. There's such like that, they call it outrage porn, where you like, I can't, like, well, sometimes when I see people reacting, I get away from the reacting videos. I like to listen to news analysis type stuff that's serious. And sometimes when they get into the reaction stuff, especially now because there's so much war going on, I am so serious right now. I am not into like the whole culture war. I mean like oh, did you see what the people over there said about the kids and all that? I'm still, of course, but like, well, whatever. That's still a thing for sure that's of a concern. But what I'm saying is like the taking in all the, like, I know it's important work, people who expose all the craziness that's out there. But it's like, for me, like taking all that, I can't watch all that craziness. I'm like, I don't want to, like, I want to know about it, generally speaking, but I certainly don't want to have a detailed encyclopedic, like, memory, not even necessarily memory, but experience. I don't want to experience all that insanity. I just don't. I don't enjoy it. When stuff is cringy, I turn it off. I don't like to cringe. I think probably because I have too much sympathy with the person who's behaving cringy. And so, like, I have this terrible feeling when I see someone doing something like that I know they shouldn't in God. Like when I see someone dressed up as the opposite sex and they're saying these strange things and they're acting in this strange way and saying these horrible things, I feel this tremendous, like, the idea when I see the wrath of God on them also, and it's like, I feel no joy, sometimes people they take comfort in their wrath over it, and I don't know, like, there's more to be done about it than to be experienced. Like I said, I don't like to experience that. It's important to know what's going on and to sample it to some degree. But like the idea of like spending any amount of time like engaging in the outrage of it, I'd be worried about, is this a play? Why do I like engaging with that outrage And is that a form of pleasure to me for some reason? Now, I'd question that. Because like I said, I find myself turning away from it. But it's a wonder to me that there is so much of it. Is it just because you do initially click on it sometimes? Now after a while, I've had a tendency not to click on it. In fact, I get a lot less bait along those lines. Because I suppose I don't click on that stuff. I do think it's interesting to engage with that. As much as the AI watches me, I watch it. And I know it's watching me. That's why I don't mind, because I know I'm doing it consciously. It's just like with my name, like I said, like I a long time ago I realized I wouldn't ever try to be a private person because I had every intent of being public. I would just live in a private area, make it kind of difficult to be harassed. Like if you live in a town, it's easy for people to just park out in front of your house. Back when I was in Chicago, and all that. Like you literally can't park on my road. I mean, you could, but you'd instantly be illegally parked. Because it's like basically a one-lane road. 2 cars can fit out, but it'd be something. It'd be easy to get that thing moved. Oh, whatever. Nobody's protesting me yet, thank God. The longer I get to go without too much interference, the better I like it. But we're over an hour and 15 minutes. Amazing. We're going to finish this chapter. Well, I'm going to wax. We're going to go maybe an hour and a half to finish this chapter. Whatever. I really like this metaphor. We got to look at the last 2 verses. The stone that wall thereof was broken down. That makes me think also of like Isaiah 5, where it talks about the vineyard of the Lord of hosts, and how he would break down the wall thereof, and how he had built the wall thereof. And there's this metaphor of like building that protection. And protection also, it also marks out boundaries. As protection, just like the law is like sort of marks out and bounds things of what you're supposed to do also. It gives us the knowledge of, it points the way to what we should do. He considered, looked upon it, received. There was something to be instructed in that. That all the slothfulness of the slothful, resulted in no productivity. And that also is connected to like not to being overly concerned with things that God should be concerned with, leaving cosmic justice to God. We can only do our human justice, our human works, and God, we have to leave to God what is God's, and to men what is men. Give to Caesar what is Caesar, what is God's, what is God. There are earthly affairs that must be taken care of, and there are heavenly affairs which will be taken care of. That's why fear God and also the king. Because there is power there. And you don't want it to go to evil, because then it can be, you have to stand against it, and then it can kill you, potentially. Government can kill people. It often does. So we got to head it off before it gets out of control like that. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding hands to sleep, so shall thy poverty come as one that traveleth, and thy want as an armed man. Now, when we talk about this idea, because I don't want to leave without talking about this. The slothful, it's not just slothful and industrious to work. It is a slothful of mind. Like I say, slothful mind, they have not gone out to get understanding. As it says here, to prepare your work. Someone who is slothful just looks at the job, a big job, and it's just too big. They're intimidated by all the work. They don't want to do it. Like a big, preparing a field for crops, it's a lot of work. Like my garden is like, I don't know, probably maybe 60 feet by 60 feet. It's pretty big. I think that's about right. Maybe more than that. I don't know. It's a big garden. It's a big plot of land, and it takes a while. It takes a couple hours to till it up, and to plant it takes a course of several days. And to keep it weeded takes it's a lot of work. And even because I don't have all my time to dedicate to that field, that is a hobby for me. Mine does get thorns and stuff like that. And I know what happens if you can't get into that thing and take care of it. And it also is a metaphor for the mind. Like I said, the cares of this life, the deceitfulness of riches. Sorry, I went back. Be not witness against you. Yeah, because that's that devilish way of being. A little sleep, a little slumber, a little folded hands asleep. One of the things it talks about, I think about the parable of the 10 virgins. They all slumbered and slept. There's a metaphor, when Jesus says, take ye heed, watch and pray, for you know not when the master of the house cometh, at even, or at cock crowing, at midnight, or at the cock crowing, or the morning, or the evening, whatever like that. I forget the exact, right now at the moment. At even, or at midnight, or at the cock crowing, or in the morning, whatever, something like that, at afternoon, I forget. Lest coming suddenly he find you sleeping. That's the main thing. We don't want to be asleep. There's a spiritual sleep in which we do not recognize, like Jesus said, happy are the poor in spirit. And I'm talking about spiritual things. That's why I'm talking about poverty of spirit. Poverty of spirit is good in that we recognize we need something from God, that we are not as rich as we should be spiritually. And that's where we need to be hungry and thirsty after righteousness, after the things of the Spirit. And saying, just like in life, you have to be industrious after the things of life if you want to continue living. You have to get into your field and start working. If you want to be wise, you got to get into wisdom and exercise yourself in it so you know what it is and so you can practice it. And the same thing with this. If you want spiritual blessings, you have to go after them. You can't be sleepy about them. You can't just wait till Jesus comes counting on the insurance policy of your faith in the story. The fact that you say, well, I accepted the story. I know, but you understand how much more faith you could have and the degree to which that faith alone, if left alone, could be ready to die. Because faith alone is the only time the Bible ever talks about it is about how that's a bad thing. Because faith should never be alone. That's absurd. True faith will always generate activity because the thing believed in, it's like is going to dictate what that faith produces by nature. I mean, it's like if I say I believe there's a hurricane coming, if I really believe it, and if I say I believe it or a tornado, I say I look outside and say I believe there's a tornado headed straight to my house. Now it may be about to veer off. But if I believe it's about to hit the house, I'm probably going to take action. I'm probably not going to just stand. I might just stand there gape-jawed because of the fight or flight response. Maybe I'll get paralyzed. Probably not. I'll probably do something. I'll probably react. I might be crazy enough to run out there and yell at it in tongues or something because I'm nuts like that. Because that's about exactly what I did last time. But most people run into the basement. Most people run in the basement. When you have faith that something's happening, right? But when you have faith in God, you do things that exhibit faith in God. You have more faith. I obviously had more faith that praying would avert a disaster than I believed the disaster was actually happening. I mean, because I couldn't see a tornado actually coming. I knew there was a warning, so I was taking heed of that warning, but my idea of taking heed was getting out there in the storm and averting it somehow through faith, which is crazy to some people, but also makes sense to me because I realize I believe in God more than I believe in the storm. That's truth. Because in that moment, how big the tornado is? What, 50 feet across? It's like it's going over the face of the earth. And it did miss us by a good 2 miles. Though it did change path a time or two on the way, right? It could have hit us. Who knows when the prayer of faith turned it aside? God only knows. I was praying for it to be so. Next time we'll begin chapter 25, all right? And as we read it, I thought it was interesting because I definitely felt a shift. And we're going to look into what they mean by copied out, okay? So until then, thanks for joining me. I look forward to being back again tomorrow. Remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
For as much as this people refuseth the waters of Shiloah, that go softly, and rejoice in Rezin and Remaliah's son, therefore behold, the Lord bringeth upon them the waters of the river, strong and many, even the king of Assyria and all his glory. He shall come up over all his channels, and go over all his banks, and he shall shall pass through Judah. He shall overflow and go over. He shall reach even to the neck, and the stretching out of his wings shall fill the breadth of thy land.